Welcome to the Redline Sales and Business Podcast, featuring Shane, CEO and founder at Ideas Exchange and CEO at Sales Driven. Each week we'll bring you advice, tips, and thoughts about sales, leadership, and share our experience on growing an effective business. Meet guests, enjoy the stories, and most importantly, have fun. This is Redline.
Hey guys, it's Shane again for another episode of the Redline Podcast, and today we've got Chris Walker from Refine Labs. He is definitely somebody that a lot of people should be listening to because he is very experienced in this industry. If you're not following his content online, you should be, because I have, and it has been a game changer in the way I approach this market. So I'll hand it over to Chris, let him do a quick introduction, and then we'll get into the podcast and the juicy bits of why we're here today. Hand it over to you, Chris.
Shane, thanks for having me on the show. Really excited for this one. Also, it's like a little bit of a different audience than I normally talk to, so I'm going to love to go deep on this specific situation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Walker. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Refine Labs. Over the past 4 years, we've worked with more than 250 B2B tech and software companies to either, one, build a new demand function from the ground up, or scale and transform an existing demand engine from a lead gen to a demand or ABM motion. And so we've helped a lot of companies do this. We're inside of their Salesforce data. We're building out advertising campaigns. We're thinking about their organic content. We're building out creative and thought leadership. And so we just have a very interesting view with all of these companies about what's actually happening in the market, what is actually going on in this based on Salesforce data, not based on surveys about how much budget people have and what things they're adopting, what's actually happening in the data, which gives us a really interesting view to look over the market and say, these are patterns and trends that are happening with these types of companies. This is why this type of trend is happening. And here's what we need to do about it. Here's a creative, new, different solution to think about what we have to change in order to address this problem, which doesn't have to be technology. It can be process, it can be people, it can be structure, it can be budget allocation or frameworks of way to think. And so that's what we bring to the market. Typically, growth and mature B2B SaaS companies.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw a cocktail in there. So because of your category of customer, I am actually working with two of those customers that I think would fit the bill for this conversation today. So one of them is Temenos. They're a $1 billion company. They are the biggest digital banking software company on the planet. And then we have ISG, who is another major account of mine. I work with their general partner, and she is putting together all of their event strategy for that company there. So the two tasks of assignment that I'm faced with right now and that I'm challenged with right now are these private networking events that I'm setting up with them, high-level executives, roundtable discussions, 3 to 4 hours, and we get about 10, 12 executives in the room. Now, the challenge with that is we are going with brute force versus putting content in front of them, putting some engagement in front of them. That's one track. Now, there's another track, which is ISG, and ISG is looking at digital banking services and BFSI. And on those two tracks, they're trying to penetrate Europe, Paris and Berlin, so France and Germany, both regions that I don't speak the native language in. And they're trying to get them to one of their expert consultancy-based events so that they can meet and greet them, open doors and everything, and so on and so forth. Now, when I go into those conversations and ask these individuals, hey, the agenda that we're looking at when we're in Paris over the next few weeks consists of XYZ, speakers at XYZ. Is this agenda something that you guys want to take a deeper look at? Is this something that we can register you for? And a lot of the problem is a lot of these people don't know who they are. There's no awareness. There's no attention. They're unfamiliar. So how do we break through that a lot of people in my network actually watch this, and this is what we do. So how do we overcome that obstacle where they don't know who you are? They're massive companies. They got great products and great services, but these people don't know who they are right now. These are some of their most desirable customers. So how does Chris Walker at Refine Labs help these two industries, even me, pivot their approach so that they can get this interest and they can get in front of these people, especially for them to attend in the room on the day?
In the first example where they're doing the hyper-local events, 12 executives doing some type of content or roundtable, the first thing that you need to do is recognize that same information that's being delivered to the 12 people could be delivered at scale to your entire market, given it's such great information. So by only focusing on the physical in this one-to-one and not thinking about how it scales digitally, you're really missing out on the major opportunity. So what I would do is I would keep doing the hyper locals with 12 people. I would add on a virtual event component where we're doing a similar thing virtually that's open to a lot of different geographies and not restricted by physical location. And then I would use both of those things to extract long form content that becomes a podcast and then becomes videos for LinkedIn, and quasi becomes an influencer strategy as you involve experts and people externally. And if you package the content right and they were on your podcast, they're going to share that podcast to other people who are most likely like them, aka your target customer. And so that would be the strategy. And that's how you build one-to-one connections when you have someone involved in creating content with you versus trying to have them at a sales dinner and pitch them. And so
Exactly.
you're already on the right track here. And now it's just thinking about how are we able to scale that out digitally so that before we go to the next city and invite people to the event, they've seen us on LinkedIn before. Other people they know have been on our podcast. They're starting to get familiar. They trust us more. And then when you send the invite for the physical event, it lands way better.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. And I'll give you an example. So in my previous company, this is one of the platforms that I took a liking to because it was more prestigious. It wasn't so, my first company that I built was in outbound sales, very tacky, tarnished industry. You got a shitty reputation. It's never really good. So this is why I've transitioned into this next phase or this next arena, which is a bit more higher level. But what I'm getting at is when we were doing or introducing these events to some of the first customers, TCS, Tech Mahindra, they were mainly Indian firms, and they were having a major struggle getting in front of these accounts because they were just trying to sell to them. And this was the biggest issue. And I've actually done it with one of the clients we had, didn't want to listen. No, don't worry. I don't need a partner. I'll just do the presentation at dinner with them. It was a fucking nightmare, the event. It was absolutely shit. So one of the companies that we worked with, Automation Anywhere, massive RPA company, they spent about $750,000 on these private networking events. And the reason for that is because their strategy incorporated the big four partners. So EY, KPMG, Deloitte, and what was the other one? KPMG, EY, whatever the other one is. So they had them partner with them on these events. They increased the number, so they co-sponsored these events. The topics were great because they were from some of these reputable names, and they were able to attract some of the largest audiences in that particular year, and it worked out very, very well. So what do you think is the right way to leverage partners when getting people to these events with this digital content strategy, with this one-to-one approach? How can you leverage more growth with your partners to achieve a better result?
The core understanding of this process is understanding that like company A has a set audience right now. That could be an email data, it could be a social following, it could be podcast listeners, it could be event attendees. They have some level of an audience right now. And then company B or partner has a different audience. And then when you collaborative content and share on the distribution, you cross audiences, and then people that like one move to the other and people that like one move to the other. This is a very common move I used in the early stages and still use, but I think at the early stages, it was very impactful. I partnered with people like Josh Wells, Justin Braun, Ladney Conant, Sydney Sloan on content and events, and Dave Gerhardt and a bunch of other people. And was able to get audience crossover where I had, like, people didn't know me then, but they knew Sydney, that there became crossover, and they're like, wow, Chris was with Sydney. Sydney agrees with Chris. Chris is credible. And that's what you're trying to get across here with partners. You have the big four consulting firms that have massive trust and audience. You create an environment where you can cross over audiences in terms of promotion for the event, distribution on the way out, and then you basically not siphon off because you're not taking it from anyone, but you draft off of the other audience, which creates more people for you. That's really
Awesome.
what you do with content collaboration.
Absolutely. And then what kind of things, so now it's 2023, clearly I'm a bit outdated because you've done this before and it was many, many years ago. So what is the thing that in 2023, what should a lot of field marketing directors, directors of excellence, ABM leaders that I used to work with in oil and gas, I think they'll take a liking to this, but what do you think works now and that they should be trying to do when they're too naive to learn about the other things that are going on or working effectively?
The number one thing in field marketing today is leveraging all the great stuff you do in field and connecting it to a digital strategy through and through. So like
Okay.
if you're out there doing a road show with 50 dinners and 50 different presenters and things like that, take 5 minutes, put a fucking mic on the person and a $50 Zoom recorder, a podcast. Hire a videographer. You're paying $10,000 for dinner. Hire a videographer for $300 to get content for you for LinkedIn and to edit it. And the additional cost on top of all of the field expense is like 1% of the budget to capture all of the content and information, make good content out of it, and then distribute it at scale on the internet. And you create a flywheel where when you promote the physical event properly digitally, more people start coming to the events and hearing about the next like step on the road show. And you start getting more attendance and buzz through this flywheel. If you're doing a road show every week and you're going to a different city, you could literally have digital content for a year just from your field events. And right now, they get together in a dinner with 30 people. They talk about shit for 20 minutes. They don't record it. They have a dinner, and then nothing happens after that. And you just
Yep, you're absolutely right.
And so
Absolutely right.
that is the fundamental shift in field that has the highest leverage right now. It's like
Wow.
like putting oil in your car, right? Like why would you spend $20 to put oil in your Ferrari if the Ferrari works well? That's literally what we're doing here. We spend $3 million a year on field events. How about we just add like $3,000 in equipment and funding and stuff like that to get a way more out of it? I think it's
so we'll come up against this. So they'll all say, "Oh well, I can't get any more budget. I've just got budget for this." What do you say when that happens?
cut 3 events and get the budget.
All right, I think I'm gonna have to
Go to
try
two
that
less.
one
Go to 2 less locations, and the $20,000 you're going to spend on your 17th and 18th event of the year would be much better spent to create digital content for the whole year and have 2 less events, and you still have 16 of them. Like that's the conversation. If you really don't have budget, which is often not true, cut 1 event and reinvest the money to make this whole strategy work in perpetuity.
then.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a good, that hits the nail on the head. So one thing that I've done very well is fail forward and accelerate my learning through my failures. And that's one of the things I focus on in this podcast is failures, learnings, and then a little bit about a message to yourself, which is quite traditional, but I think it makes a big impact. So the number one thing you failed on throughout your career that gave you the biggest learning lesson, what was that?
Anytime I've had a significant failure in my career is because I didn't have direct sight and focus on the customer. So all of the challenges that I face as a CEO, as I faced as a marketing leader, or even a regular marketer, are all dictated by how much of a pulse I have on our target customer at that exact time. And so that could drive you to lower pricing to accommodate a bad fit customer while your good fit customers would pay you 20% more. It could lead you to changing the overall messaging strategy. There's a lot of things that can change both at the marketing level and at the business level when you don't have a deep pulse of who exactly your customer is and what's going on in their world that moment.
And from that, I think a lot of people need to understand that I had a huge argument with somebody I was working with actually, because he was telling me, go find out, he was sending me a bunch of content about the types of people that I was going to engage with in terms of the audiences that I was going to approach. And he got, like, I didn't have time, so I was delegating it, and he was asking me questions about it, and I didn't have those answers. And he was so mad about it. And one of the events didn't go as planned. And I think that was one of the main reasons, because I didn't know enough about the customer. Right. And adding to that, in the past 3 years that I've ran my business, that is one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, not knowing enough about my customer. And when I dove into some of the nitty gritty details, which were kind of below the surface, it was a completely different set of problems that we needed to solve. And that's what I think a lot of people do underestimate, that a buyer will typically tell you a set of bullshit that is going on to try to get you to deliver on some type of deliverable. but there's a number of underlying issues that they don't tell you about. And because they don't tell you about that, that hampers the success of your work and your campaigns. And then you get the blame after it.
Gotta be looking for it too. Like it's not just going to come and show up. You have to invest a lot of energy to create a feedback mechanism with your customers so that you know them, so that you're with them. Physical events is one way. I use like virtual and digital to scale the feedback, whether that's through LinkedIn comments, people sending me DMs about what works, coming to live events that we host on Zoom, interacting in several different Slack communities or other private groups. And I'm able to basically be with my customer, whether they pay right now or not, right? I'm with them. That's something. So if you're just sitting back in your boardroom, hoping that a bunch of customer sentiment is going to come your way, it's just not how it works. And I've found, some people might find this, some people might disagree with me here, but I've found that as a business owner or as a marketing leader, you need to go and get this feedback directly from the customer. Do not go through sales and do not get feedback from your partner. It is overlaid with their subjectivity about what they think the customer needs. You need it direct from the customer because you look at it from a different view than your partner or your sales team. And so you have to direct the customer to get this stuff. And then there's multiple ways to have that coming both physically in person and through virtual digital.
I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I used when I first started, I was in, what was it, Rev Genius, I think, spoke to Jared and I said, I want to speak to somebody about improving demand generation. And he shared this template that he actually does share now with his community. And it's a ICP template and it goes into the profile of the customer. It asks you to interview a set number of customers with a set series of about 20, 30 questions. Business triggers, personal frustrations, emotional triggers, where they sit, what their communities are, where they absorb content, and a very, very detailed breakdown. And when you get the answers from your customer, you kind of copy and paste some of those answers where they have it into the next field. And then you build a set of messaging for your CEOs, your VPs, your SVPs, your CTOs, and you align the messaging with the job titles. And then you get into market segmentation, and then you get into your account segmentation. Then you build an ABM list. The amount of times I've done that with a client, and the ones that did it worked out fucking great. However, there are other ones who are like, oh no, don't worry, I'll fill it in. I know what to say. I know what they like. End of that campaign, what do you think happens? It bombs.
Of course. If you don't know your customer, yeah.
And I'm like, you saying what you say or what you think their problems are not the same as your customer's voice. And until you use your customer's narrative within your messaging, you're going to be up against the same shit every time. So what's the biggest, so again, what's the last thing and then on that, what is the biggest learning for you where you are today? What's the biggest learning experience for you in building a business?
To always be very clear and focused and build your company around a specific target customer. It drives your product strategy. It drives your pricing and packaging. It drives your messaging. It drives what type of people you hire and what type of core capabilities you need. It influences what partners you use. And so being very, very clear on these are our best fit customers and here are the ideal traits of our best customers that might not be company size and job title and industry. It might be something much deeper and more important than that. And when you know that and you have clarity on that, you can build exactly for that customer. I think that is the biggest learning I've had as a business owner so far.
All right. And then a lot of people that I speak to, I try to tell them like the amount of people that are doing weird shit these days, like when I was 18, 19, 20, I was doing a lot different than what these kids are doing today.
Like what? Like making YouTube videos?
No, I love YouTube. I'm all over YouTube. So making YouTube videos is not the half of it, but just some of them, there's a lot, some of them I won't even say, but just some of them are very, very strange with how they operate today. And if I knew the things I knew now, when I was 18, I would have lived a very different life. At 18, I decided.
Same with everybody.
Well, I went to school. So I was born here. I went to school in America. Okay. At the age of 13, 7th and 8th grade, saw all the American kids. I was like, wow, these kids are fucking huge. Jenko jeans, big clothes. It was crazy. And, mate, after high school, I got involved in all kinds of shit. Ended up going down the wrong road, met a few really, really bad people, bad girls, ended up in jail, prison, rehab, removed from the USA. Like, I've been through it all, dude, and I've had to build myself up from scratch today. But if I had a few of the tools, I knew that, look, in 20 years, if you do a few of these things, you'd be a very different spot in your life. But nonetheless, I might not be, because I've built a lot of strength through the trials and tribulations I've had. What's
Totally.
one thing you would tell yourself, the 18-year-old Chris Walker, you just graduated from high school? What would you tell yourself? What one thing would you tell yourself to do differently so you could change your path?
Don't listen to what society tells you you're supposed to do.
I love it.
That's really what I would tell myself. Don't listen to what society tells you to do. For like from 18 to 23, I like quote unquote wasted. I never look at it as a waste, but I spent 5 years living a life that I thought I was supposed to, because society told me this is what I'm supposed to do. Even from 23 to 27, I started to move in that direction, but I was very much in conform to the get a job, hope you get a promotion type of deal. And when you look at what society's telling you you're supposed to do, and you reject the premise of what it is, and you think about it logically, the way that you approach your life is so much more on offense than what it normally is. And so you build your company faster. You take what people consider risks, which are actually like oftentimes less risky than just getting a job. You take risks, you become more entrepreneurial. You figure out that you can make money on your own. You don't need some company to paycheck every day.
Exactly.
Like those are some of like, I think that would have made the most difference for me at 18 is don't do what society tells you you're supposed to do.
And if people were to say, well, look at me. So like some of the guests I like to have on my show are people that I either look up to or think that people can say, wow, I'd like to be like him. There's a saying, don't ever ask a fat doctor how to be skinny. I learned it a very long time ago. Just because they got the qualification don't mean he knows how to do it, especially if he's fat. So tell my audience a little bit about Chris, who you are today, what you've achieved, what's the biggest win you've had. If people want to follow that journey, what kind of fulfillment, which is very important to me, can they experience? And then we'll wrap off with how they kind of find you.
Yeah, I worked as a W-2 employee in B2B companies for the first like 7-8 years of my career, venture funded, privately owned, publicly traded, doing product management, operations, demand gen, supply chain, bunch of different stuff inside of companies, and built this mindset of how I enter companies. I can identify quickly what is the core biggest issue in this business, or what's the biggest growth lever that we can pull, finding it and then pulling it. During that time, I also built several e-commerce stores. And so I was like, people think this is crazy, but in 2013, I was running Amazon FBA and Amazon search ads and making $200,000 to $250,000. 23-year-old doing Amazon, importing quality goods from China and rebranding them and selling them on Amazon at 23. Wow. So I figured out Amazon search ads very quickly. And then I started to figure out running Facebook ads to sell stuff in 2013, 2014. And then Instagram came along, and I figured out how to use Instagram organic to sell the products that I was trying to sell, all while having a job. And so that learning in the background was huge. And then it eventually hit where like all the skills that I had developed on my own then matched what a company that I worked for needed, called Vapotherm. And I basically put that to work for 2 years. And during that time, like really dialed in what I was doing. I thought what I was doing was like the best practice and what everybody was doing. And then when I finished it, I looked out and I said, holy shit, all the stuff that I initially did that didn't work is what everybody is doing right now. And I know that when I changed it and did something different, it worked way better. And if it worked way better here, and then I go and consult and do it with 3 other companies and it works there, you start to see with proper execution, there's a fundamental change in how companies use marketing, or what they call demand, to accelerate growth and improve sales productivity and overall organizational scalability. And so that's basically where I've hung my hat on. And since then, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've consulted and we've worked with more than 250 companies like that over the past 4 years, which has just given us an incredible level of experience when you think about how are we going to structure this process so the customer is most likely to be successful? What to do when? How do we put it in place? What are we going to measure? So we've had tons of innovation and intellectual property be created through the work with all of these companies and seeing different patterns. And so now I sort of like, some people will look at me and think about me as like actually starting to look at this in a scientific way and notice pattern and interpret data and be able to see, no, like this isn't just an experiment that worked with one company. Now we're seeing it happen with 75 out of 100 companies that tried this are seeing this type of result. And you start to come to some level of scientific credibility and add statistics, just like they do in medicine and biotech and a lot of other places, so that when you do something, you have some confidence interval that this outcome is going to happen. That's where I'm starting to take my career. So people think marketing is an art. There's there is a lot of art to it, especially on the positioning and strategy side. And when it comes to demand, we need to treat it more like a science. And when I say a science, not collect data in our CRM or run an experiment in our company, what they do in actual science, which is run large scale experiments across a lot of different accounts and then measure the results. By having more accounts involved, you actually start to have much more statistical confidence. And so that's what I think will be like the next frontier here, is that we can actually dial in and look at, demand gen methodologies and have like the thing that I published about Metadatas report a couple of that's like the first credible, real like science that's happened in a long time in B2B. And taking that report with $42 million in spend, 236,000 leads collected, more than 100 companies' data is aggregated there. And you can look at that and draw as confident of a conclusion of paid social lead gen is highly inefficient and drives pretty terrible ROI. That's the from the data set. We have never seen anything like that. And there's so much data sitting in like the databases of GTM software companies like a Clary or a Gong or a Salesforce or a HubSpot, that if taken and looked at scientifically and started to be analyzed, we could rapidly move this profession forward. And so that's something that I think could be super interesting, to be able to use large scale data sets to drive high confidence in these types of conclusions that most people see right now. The things that I'm saying as an opinion, it's my opinion. What they don't see is like, I've seen the data in more than 100 B2B companies' CRMs, and we look at it in a standardized way. And so opinion, it's very much informed by more data than most people have ever seen in B2B. And so but bringing it to a different level of confidence and presentation, I think, is the next step, so that people can look like when a big scientific study comes out in the medical industry, and it's like, hey, like, smoking is bad for you. That came out in like the 80s. That for that, doctors are saying, smoking's fine. And then the first big study comes out. All the doctors start to learn and say, actually, we thought smoking was okay, but now it's bad. We need to tell people to not do this. But without the study, they would have never changed anything. And so in B2B, we need the studies that are conducted like medicine and science to drive the actual change. Right now, it's just the opinions of technology vendors and analyst firms that drive the change. And I think it's way less than ideal.
I think I agree with you fully on that. And I think one thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is the wasted spend. And I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of waste. And it relates to the post you did today. I think you said 1.7 million. You were working with a client or a number of clients, and there was about 1.7 million of wasted spend. And that relates heavily to some of the conversations I have, because that wasted spend that they have with me, you, or whoever else, well, no, I'll rephrase that. I wouldn't be with you because you help improve that. But when they have that wasted spend, and that spend only equates to 1 or 2 or double-digit deals below 20, again, you get the ship for it. So if you don't have that information to hand, how can you get that and present that to these marketing leaders so you can share, my way or my company's way is worth having a look because of this?
We run a 4-week manual analysis inside of their CRM that's standardized and come back with the conclusions and compare them against the benchmark of all the companies that we've done before. And so that you have to go in, like most companies that are mature and developed actually have all the data they need. They just don't look at it in the same way that we do. So it's like taking a whole lens to how you're analyzing it. And we help illuminate, like the companies that are coming to us already want to do what we're saying. They just haven't figured out so they want to do it. They're just looking for us to help accelerate them and guide them and help them avoid mistakes and move faster. That's really what we,
and one thing that's also interesting about your webpage is, I used to battle with my co-founder about this, and it was about showing the price of your product or service on your webpage. And when I saw I saw the website, and my business partner said, look at it. And I thought, this website is fucking dope. And then I went to the pricing and I was like, holy shit, this dude is he's showing 75,000 on this. And then he's showing huge, like, is he not afraid that customers are going to be, that's too expensive? But then again, the people that are ready to buy that will. So what do you tell people who, the naysayers, don't put your price online? What do you say to them? Because I think you should. I think you should just be transparent and make it as easy as possible for somebody to buy.
The only thing you have to ask is, you could do a survey with your customers. Would you like to know the price before you talk to our sales rep? Yes or no? Ask the question. 90 to 100% of people are going to, probably 100% of your target customers is going to say, yes, I would like to know the price before I get on a phone call with your sales rep. And even with the data from 100 of your best fit customers, you still won't fucking do it. And so I don't know what else there is to say. Like if you take a customer centric approach and you ask customers, they will tell you that they want this.
Yeah.
And I get that you don't want to show the price because, oh, it's too complicated to calculate, or our S reps need to show value and we need to qualify someone before they get to know the price, whatever your old school stuff is. If you ask your customer wants it, you need to figure out how inside of your company you can accommodate key things that customers want inside of the buying process while also making it work for you, which always is a good idea. And if you don't do it, then other people in your industry or your direct competitors, or maybe something that's totally new, that's an adjacent category that's going to come and eat your lunch on a different solution, is going to do those things, and they're going to start taking market share from you. Buyers are getting less and less interested in jumping through all the hoops and garbage that B2B companies do. They're in total avoidance. And the reason is because there's no value for the customer. It's the B2B company and the B2B sales team extracting value and wasting time of a lot of people. And we have to look at it differently. From the company side as well, if you don't show pricing, you're probably spending at least 20 to 30% of your sales team's time talking to people that aren't qualified to buy.
You're 100% right. I used to hate. That's why I got out of that industry. It was a fucking waste of time. Absolute waste of time. Well, we've reached the top of the half an hour period that I love to spend with my new guests. So Chris from over the pond, how can people reach out to you and find out about your legendary skill set?
Feel free. I have a podcast. It's called B2B Revenue Vitals, available on Apple, Spotify, and all the other podcast platforms. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I post content almost every day. Chris Walker 171 on LinkedIn. I'm also Chris Walker 171 on other platforms if you want to see what I'm doing there. And then, those are great places to feel. If you're trying to shoot me a DM, feel free. LinkedIn or Instagram is probably the best way to catch me.
What about Threads? Are you on Threads yet?
I have a Threads account, but I'm not very active on Threads. So it's an interesting point. Like Threads is out and it has 100 million users, but engagement went down 50% after the first week. And like there's a time in social platforms where you're too early, and there's time where you're too late, and then there's just right. And Threads is just early. Like if it continues to have engagement and usage, I don't really like short form written. Like I don't like the Twitter and Threads type of style, but if it becomes as meaningful as LinkedIn and TikTok and there's business opportunity, then I'm going to figure out how to use it. But we don't need to figure that part out today. So the same thing goes with TikTok. I sat on TikTok for 2 or 3 years where I knew about it. I knew there was an opportunity, but I also knew that people that were 35 and could make a enterprise B2B decision were not on there yet. And then there were point where it became clear that, oh, this isn't just 18-year-old kids. Like there's not just kids dancing anymore. There's content on business. There's content on marketing. There's content on finance. The people that are using it are the fastest growing demographic is 38 to 50. And you see that type of data and you're like, okay, now is the time to move. And then that's the right time. So Threads just isn't there yet.